We're going to be exploring how we can make selection. So selection is key to picking out the page element that you want to apply the styling to. You can use either the tags, the IDs, classes. You can also do a combination where you've got the element and specifying the class selector. There's also a wildcard, so this gets applied to all of the page elements. You can also group the selection process by selecting multiple page elements, various selectors, and comma separating out the selectors. In order to apply styling, you need to make a selection of the elements. So we've got a number of different page elements on the page, and we're going to be making selections of those elements. So first off, you can select it using the tag. So whether it's the div, the header, the nav, the unordered list, or the list item, we can select it using the tag, and this will select all of the page elements that are matching that selection. So for instance, if we want to select the nav, let's go ahead and we'll make a selection and then apply the properties to that. I'm going to update the background color property of all of the page elements that have a nav, and we'll set the background to be yellow. So within the visual area of the web page, HTML page, we can see that the background goes yellow to the nav. Let's select the list items, and we'll also apply a background color to the list items. I'll select it and set it to a blue background. So what we can see happened here is that the nav, which is the parent of the unordered list and as well as the list items, gets a background of yellow, but because we've applied the background specifically to the list items, which are nested within the parent, we see that we get a blue background being applied to those elements. You can also select elements using their IDs. So let's go ahead and we're going to add in an ID. We've got several divs on the page, and this is another way that we can distinguish block of code that we want to apply styling to. This one, an ID of 1. So we can select that element using the hash and specifying the ID name. And I'm going to apply a background color to this one as well. And we'll set this one to be red. So we see that this particular div now has the property of background color being red being applied to it. So if we were to select all of the divs and apply a background color of beige to all of the divs, the one that has the selection of the element with the ID of 1 still is red. If we move this property down below, we see that it's still red because we're more specific on the ID and applying the background color of red. And if we were to remove this, the div is also getting a background color of beige being applied to it. Another way to make a selection is using the class. So we do have a div with a class of wrapper. So if we want to select that element with a class of wrapper and set a background color to that element, and this is going to be the parent of all of the elements, select this and set it to be purple. So now all of the elements are going to get a background color of purple. The ones that are nested inside of the wrapper are going to have different styling background colors being applied to them, and that's going to result in this type of effect where we've got the parent getting the original color, the children within, we've also setting different colors for them, and that's affecting how it's being output. You should only have one element with a particular ID. So this is a unique way of making a selection of the page element. When you're selecting it with classes or the tags, there's possibility that there's more than one element that's going to be represented. So if you want to be really specific with the page element, you can select it using its properties, and we've got an unordered list with the list items, and they've all got anchor tags inside. So if we want to focus in and list item, I'll give it a class of highlight, and I'll also give the second one a class of highlight. So we want to select all of the list items. By adding the highlight class allows us to make the selection of those elements, and that we can do when we're selecting the list items, join it together with the class of highlight, set the background color for these. So set the background color to be green. So now we've selected these page elements and applied a background color of green to them. So these are the list items with the class of highlight. This styling allowing us to zero in on those elements and apply the styling to it. We can also select using the wildcard, and this is going to be something that can get applied to all of the page elements. So if we want to set a color of pink to the text. The wildcard selects all of the page elements. In addition, we can group selections together by comma separating. So let's go ahead and we're going to go back in and add several different IDs, and we'll add one more element with an ID of 3. And if we want to select all of these matching elements on the page, we can comma separate out. So selecting the element with an ID of 1, ID of 2, ID of 3, and then also let's select the element with a class of highlight. So all of the matching elements are going to get this property applied to it, and this is how you can group the selection. So we've selected elements with an ID of 1, 2, and 3, and also the elements with a class of highlight, and apply a color of red to those elements. So all of the matching ones now have a color of red. The rest of them are pink, and I'll actually update this to be white because we've got background colors for all of them. And that's how you can group the selection process, select multiple page elements, and apply the properties to all of them. So go ahead and try it out, create your HTML, and make a selection using the tags, the IDs, and the classes, and you can be ready to move on to the next lesson.